Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's webinar. Today, we are going to be talking about how to create a balanced work environment, as well as how to create a balanced work life for yourself. This webinar is brought to you by the Workplace Peace Institute Leadership Academy, and it's a part of our new Paradigm Leadership Educational Series. This series is something that we bring to you almost every month. And we will be wrapping up our last two webinars in September and October of this year. So if you haven't yet registered for those, we look forward to sharing with you in September about how to bring a restorative approach to conflict resolution to your workplace. And then in October, we'll be talking about mindfulness practices for leaders. And that one in particular, I think, is very relevant to today's topic. So we're happy to see you all here. For those who may not know me, my name is Robin Short. I am the founder and CEO of Workplace Peace Institute, and I work as an organization systems design consultant. And what that means is that I support leaders in understanding how the system of their organization is designed and how we can design it intentionally to ensure that the humans inside that system are able to thrive and that the system itself is designed to produce as much peace and dignity in the workplace as possible. I also work as a leadership development trainer and coach, a mediator and peace builder. I work as a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging consultant. And my hope is that through all of my work, I support leaders and individuals and really all people in actualizing their human potential. So with this webinar being presented by the Workplace Peace Institute Leadership Academy, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about our courses, particularly our online courses. All of our courses are designed to optimize competencies in human behavior, particularly around communication skills, conflict resolution, diversity, equity, and inclusion belonging, so that together we can create highly engaged workplaces where basic human needs are honored, where dignity is honored, so that we can all thrive in our work. Because we know that when individuals thrive, organizations thrive. So today, one of the ways that we are going to be talking about how we can thrive in the workplace is through our commitment to living healthy, well-balanced lives, bringing a well-balanced human into the workplace for the benefit of ourselves, for the benefit of one another, and for the benefit of what we have come together to do in our work. So we're going to talk a little bit about just what work-life balance is and why it's important for our personal fulfillment and for our career success. We'll talk about how when we strengthen confidence, when we strengthen our self-confidence and our self-esteem, we built, a foundation for balance and well-being in our life. We'll take a look at some practical strategies that we can apply to support us in creating balance, as well as how mindfulness and stress management tools can be used to support us in staying centered and grounded in our daily life and the daily demands of both our work and our work life. Our work life and our personal life. And we'll talk a little bit about how we can sustain balance over time by adapting to change while preserving our confidence and well-being. So let's get started. So what does it really mean to have work-life balance? As we jump into this, I want to lift up something that one of my clients and colleagues, Amanda Littman, from the organization Run for Something. She wrote a book about called When We're in Charge. And in her book, she reframes the idea of work-life balance to work-life integration. And I think that's an interesting concept. When I think about work-life balance, I really think about how are we truly balancing all of the aspects that go into maybe a well-balanced, holistic life? So, our home life. And I think home life is connected to actual home responsibilities, but also the joy and the comfort and our capacity building that can take place by being in our home and being really engaged in that personal side of our life. I think of home as my sanctuary and a place where I go for restoration. Um, so we have our home life. Our finances are a critical part of the whole aspect of a balanced life. We also need to prioritize our well being, our physical, mental, psychological, spiritual health. Our personal growth is an important part of what it means to when we think about this, the whole wheel of our life. Um, our love, like where we have space and time and intentionality around being with the people who we truly love and who nourish us, and where we experience connection. We need recreation in our life. We need time for social life. And there's also our career. And so when we think about work life balance, we're really looking at how much of ourselves are we able to really lean into each of these pieces? And I think when we think about work life integration, it's how do all of these pieces integrate with one another? And I appreciate the reframing of work life integration because I think that works for some of us, that some of us are really truly moving in and out of each of these pieces throughout our entire day, that it's not compartmentalized in time chunks. And I think that this is especially true as more people have gone into remote or virtual work. But I also don't want to let go of the idea of work life balance because maybe integration actually isn't something that is supportive for you. Maybe it really is time chunking, that it's helpful for us to be able to have this piece of the day where we're focused on one piece of this wheel, and then we close that out and move into another element. um, so in Amanda's book, When We're in Charge, she talks a lot about this work-life integration concept and what that really looks like. And as I reflected on the way she was presenting it, and I recommend her book, um, I was thinking to myself, I think mine is really around balance, that I do time chunk and I don't want too much of work balancing or bleeding into my home life, that I have very intentionally created some boundaries around each of these pieces. So I'm offering that as we go through this idea of work-life balance for you to think about for yourself. What really is more supportive for you? Is it finding balance between each of these aspects of the wheel of life? Or is it really more about how each of these integrate with one another? And there's no right or wrong approach to this. But when we do look at this, what we're looking for is alignment between work and alignment between personal priorities. And in this perspective, if you come back to these slides, which I'll share with you, and you really start thinking about each aspect of this wheel of life, realize that we're not looking for quality in each of these percentages. And depending on where you are in your career and what stage of life you're in, it's going to evolve and change. I am at a point in my life, I'm 52 years old. And what's interesting, something that I've been observing, is I have friends and colleagues who are like me. Their career is in, I would say I'm in the prime of my career. And a big piece of my wheel of life is career. And other people my age, a big piece of theirs is actually more in the recreation and the home life and the social life, because we're at this interesting age point where some of us are sort of winding down with our interest in career, and others of us feel like, wow, we're really just really hitting the stride. So this is going to be something that's different for all of us, and it's going to be something that shifts and evolves as we um, as we go through different stages of life. But when we think about this idea of work-life balance and why it matters, just like in any element of our life where we get out of balance, if we have too much sleep or too little sleep, um, we maybe don't feel well. We maybe aren't as productive. We need to have balance in all aspects of our life in order for us to really achieve optimal health, in order for us to have optimal energy to bring to each aspects of the wheel of life. We have stronger relationships, both personal relationships, friendships, stronger relationships with our family, but we also have stronger relationships with our coworkers when we have healthy work-life balance. And really importantly, we should be, if you are a person who leads a team or leads an organization, it's important to know that when people experience work-life balance, what comes with that is our capacity to contribute at higher levels to our work. And we also have much more capacity for creativity. So it is a organizational benefit for for all employees to experience healthy work-life balance because it's directly connected to our well-being and our capacity and desire and motivation to contribute. When we don't have healthy work-life balance, we do risk burnout. And a couple of months ago, we had a webinar about burnout, what it is, and how to care for ourselves. And so we obviously want to be in supportive relationship with ourselves and supportive relationships with one another so that we don't reach the point of burnout. And so that when we may be edging close to burnout, it feels psychologically safe for us to name that and say, I need to take a step back for a minute to care for myself so that I don't get out of balance. So as we're edging closer to burnout, it's a signal that things have gotten out of balance. And when things get out of balance, we begin to come at risk to being very disengaged from our work, disengaged from the joy that we may have in our contributions, disengaged from one another, and we begin to reach that place where we may start to have health problems. So really paying attention to this wheel of life. What does balance look like for you? What is a healthy, where are you healthiest in terms of how your focus is in each of these areas? Is balance what you're looking to achieve, or is very healthy integration what you're looking to achieve? And then what is going to signal for you when you begin to get close to a place where it's out of balance so that you can begin to put measures in place to achieve that healthy work-life balance? I also want to lift up that healthy boundaries are a two-way street. When we're thinking about this from the perspective of work, in every organization, there's power differentials, there's power dynamics associated with how with the degree to which we're able to be in healthy relationship with the boundaries that we want to set for ourselves in service to having healthy balance. So if you are a leader, it's really critically important that healthy work-life balance for your team is something that's top of mind, that you're very respectful of other people's limitations, that you are having ongoing dialogue about what healthy work-life balance or healthy work-life integration looks like for you, and that you're really in relationship with people in such a way that it's going to foster trust, that they know you're going to be a trustworthy partner with these boundaries, and that there's psychological safety in place that will support your ability for mutual feedback as it relates to this concept of healthy boundaries. One of the things that I have seen leaders doing recently, in recent years, is including in their subject line that, in the signature line of their emails, that my the times, I can't remember exactly how it's phrased, but the times where I'm working may be different from the times that you're working, and I'm acknowledging that. And I think that that's a helpful start. But what we also know about power dynamics is that people in an organization who have more role power are going to be modeling what is acceptable and not acceptable. So just simply stating something in a signature line about respectful acknowledgement that we don't all work at the same time, but I'm still sending emails at 1 o'clock in the morning is still going to cue to the people on my team that maybe I should be working pretty intense hours. So it's not just enough to say it. We need to really model what healthy boundaries look like. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on. And for those of us who may not be in leadership positions, it's also important that we are able to communicate our limits very clearly. That might be part of the interviewing process, is getting a good sense of what the work culture is going to be, and communicating at that stage what your boundaries are. But again, leaders need to be building trust, and they need to be building psychological safety so that that ongoing communication feels that there's real space for that to happen, and that it will be truly respected. We also need to protect our rest and our recovery time. It's critical for brain health that we actually have 8 hours of sleep a night. If you are not hitting REM sleep, meaning if you aren't dreaming at night, you're not hitting the level of sleep that's actually necessary for true recovery. Humans need a lot of sleep, and it's really critical for our ability to be in a state of homeostasis and health, and to not begin to shift into stages of burnout if we're not getting enough sleep. It's really critically important. So it's important that we protect our rest and that we're very, very intentional about recovery time. I'm working with an organization right now in their core values work, and they have put this in their core values that they protect rest and recovery time. It's not framed exactly that way, but they're communicating to their team part of the values that we will hold dear is that we will care for one another. And it's really critical if we want people to be able to show up as their best self and to contribute truly all the gifts that they have to offer, that they're coming to the workplace from a place of restoration. So leaders do have a role in supporting balance. And one of the ways that we do that is by modeling healthy habits. If we are creating permission structures for people to have healthy habits, meaning maybe there's a gym on site, maybe we have an employee assistance program that ensures there's access to wellness offerings, but we're not actually practicing those habits ourselves, we'll be sending a cue that it may not be safe to do that. So we need to model the behavior that we think is supportive for the people that are on our teams. We also need to encourage that people take their personal time off without guilt. So the time is available, excuse me, the time is available, and we check in, and maybe in our one-on-one meetings, we check in with people to make sure that they know they have access to this time. It's available to them, that we're encouraging them to take that time and to do so without guilt. And that means that we need to also take our PTO time, that we are modeling this as a benefit that's being offered to the employee, and that we are embracing this idea of taking time away and really truly unplugging. Offer flexibility wherever that's possible, and then also just set realistic expectations for people. Building confidence and self-esteem is a critical part of how we create work-life balance. And we do that by first understanding what our core basic human needs are, knowing that we all need personal fulfillment in our work and we need personal fulfillment in our life. So we're taking time to build enjoyable activities outside of our work life. And we know what those are, and we can schedule them, we can plan around them, we can bake them into our life. So we need personal fulfillment at work, but we also need personal fulfillment in our home life. We need to experience justice at work and justice in our home life. And I think about justice as having access to the resources that's necessary to achieve our potential. So we're being very intentional as leaders about ensuring there's justice in our workplaces. We're being intentional with ourselves as professionals to seek out those resources that are necessary to achieve our potential. But we're also aware of that in our personal life, that there's a whole human being outside of my work life that also needs resources to achieve potential. And we're seeking those out and cultivating those for ourselves. We need to be physically safe in all aspects of our life. We need to feel included and to experience belonging. We need cultural security, and we need participation. And part of experiencing participation as it relates to the concept of work-life balance is that we're able to fully participate in our work culture, in the work that we're actually contributing, but we're also being intentional about building community outside of work, that we see our neighbors and our extended life outside of work as community, and that we are really being intentional about participation in community. And I think that that is something that's been lost in recent decades, is this idea of community outside of work. And part of having a balanced work life and being a balanced human being is full participation in the broader community and really having clarity about what that means for you specifically. We also need to experience all of those essential elements of dignity in order to build confidence and self-esteem, um, particularly as it relates to having our identity accepted and being clear about what that means for us at work and being clear for what that means for us in our personal life and in our home life. That we're being intentional about giving acknowledgement and recognition to others and having feedback systems in place, both in our home life, in our work life, in our community life, where we can support one another through ongoing feedback. We need fairness and benefit of the doubt, understanding, and the ability to be independent human beings, both at work and in our home life. So, as you think about this idea of building confidence and self esteem, it might be helpful to get a journal and to use this framework as a way of exploring for yourself how you are being intentional about having these needs met for you in the workplace and how you're being very intentional about meeting these needs for yourself in your home life. Um, there are some key ways that we can build confidence and self-esteem. One is being very intentional about cultivating social connections for care and accountability. Being really clear about who your community is, how you stay connected to that community, and how you care for that community, that those people you think of as community have understanding about what care looks like for you, and that you're holding one another accountable to those commitments. It might also be helpful as you think through if you are currently experiencing a lack of or a significant lack of balance in your work life and home life. It might be supportive to get leadership coaching to work through how you can create more balance based off of our social conditioning, based off of our own individual careers and the places where we've been in work. We've all been conditioned around different ideas about work expectations and expectations about how much we're supposed to give up of ourselves. And some of us have had a hard time developing supportive and healthy boundaries. So it might be helpful to have leadership coaching. It might also be helpful to have behavioral health coaching. Behavioral health coach, leadership coaching is more around goal setting. And behavioral health coaching is more around um, uh, putting habits in place that are going to support you in your own well-being and stress management. And then there may be trauma that has shaped your life, trauma in your home life, trauma in your social life, trauma in your workplace life that is impacting um, your ability to truly experience healthy work-life boundaries. So somatic experiencing may be a service that's supportive for you, but I'm offering this for the point of if we need support creating boundaries, we should seek that support. We owe it to ourselves to really get clear around what healthy boundaries looks like. A colleague of mine once said to me that boundaries preserve the integrity of the relationship. And I have thought about that in every single context. Boundaries preserve the integrity of a friendship. Boundaries preserve the integrity of a marriage. Boundaries preserve the integrity of our professional relationships. They preserve the integrity of our work life relationships. And so I think it's just critically important that each of us spend time getting clarity around what these boundaries are, because they're going to be unique for each of us and based off of our own personal life experiences, um, family systems, conditioning in our professional lives. We're all in various um, stages of understanding and relationship with boundaries, but they're going to be critical to really developing a well balanced, healthy life. We also may need to make some lifestyle shifts to support us and balance. And some ways that we can do that is first, know your style. It might be really healthy and helpful to take different personality assessments to really understand what's going to be what balance looks like for you particularly. Some assessments that I really like are the Enneagram, the Friendly Style Profile, Strengths Finders. I think those would all be really helpful assessments to support you in really understanding your style and really getting clarity around what balance will look like for you. We also need wellness routines. We need to identify what wellness rituals and practices support your individual well-being. Some people have to hit the gym every day. I have to hit the hiking trails every day. So, where we go to access wellness is going to be really different for each of us. The gym is a high stress place for me, and it's a high place of restoration for others. So, we need to know ourselves well enough to know what wellness routines are going to work for us. And we need boundary rituals. So you can think of boundary rituals as like psychological doorways, things that tell your brain, this part of my day is over, and now I'm going to move into something else. So these are intentional actions or habits that signal the start or end of a workday. It helps your mind and your body shift between work mode and personal mode. Um, so some of the ways that we can build some boundary rituals, some examples of things that might support you in starting your day is a morning commute or a morning commute walk. So a lot for folks who still work in an office, actually getting in the car and driving is a boundary ritual. It's closing one piece of your life and opening up another piece of your life. And when a lot of people started shifting to virtual work, they lost that boundary ritual. So if you work from home, you might start your morning just with a short walk. Just you get dressed for work, walk around the block, come back, and now you are at work. It might be helpful to have something that supports this end of home life, start of work life, even if you're still at home. Maybe some intention setting. Spend 3 to 5 minutes writing down your top 3 priorities for your workday. You could even do something at the end of the day where you're setting some priorities for your home life. Maybe a mindful coffee or tea moment, enjoying your morning beverage without screen time before diving in. That's an important part of my morning ritual is coffee, then meditation, and now I'm at work. Maybe light a candle or play a start work playlist. There's all sorts of sensory cues that you can put together to support you in creating some start of the day boundary rituals. And then maybe an end of day ritual could be shutdown checklist. So review emails, update your task list, close your computer, and work is over. Maybe change clothes, swap your work clothes for your comfy clothes to signal that shift. Maybe write down some gratitude notes. I have a client that does this and posts them on Instagram, and I look forward to reading them. He does it every day. I look forward to reading it every day. Part of his end of day rituals become part of mine. End of day ritual is reading his gratitude note. Maybe a physical reset, go for a walk, or maybe workspace tidying up. Now, these boundary rituals are, in my mind, really supporting this idea of work-life balance instead of work-life integration. So if you're looking for more actual integration, then your boundary rituals might look a little bit different because you're not looking for these clear beginnings and endings. Um, some leader-friendly boundary rituals, things that you as leaders can do to support your teams, is avoiding sending emails out after hours. So I would say this is even true if you are a leader who has in your signature an acknowledgement that people have different work hours. Be thoughtful about time zones and honoring those end of day hours for other people. Because as much as we may say, you don't need to work the same hours that I work, where there's a power dynamic in play, people will likely feel compelled um, to push the edges of their own boundaries to be responsive to their leader. So be mindful of that. You can save them as drafts or just use the schedule send and send it for the next morning. Maybe end meetings a little bit early so that people have some time to transition before meetings. Now that we've moved into this world where so many people are virtual, too many of us have almost no breaks between meetings because we've just gotten used to having 60-minute meetings and we're not giving each other time between our meetings. So be thoughtful about if you're thinking it's going to be an hour, maybe set it for 45 minutes. Share your own end of day routines to normalize boundary settings. The more that a leader communicates their own boundaries, the more they're going to model that this is something that's appreciated and encouraged in the organization. And we also need to be very mindful of managing our stress. So it's important to integrate mindfulness practices throughout your day. I've had personally a really intense week as it relates to meetings. I've done a lot of facilitation this week, and I'm an introvert, so it takes a lot of energy out of me. And as I was preparing for this webinar today, I was like, I need to just take a pause and do some mindfulness work so that I can come to this webinar with the energy that all of you deserve. So I spent the 15 minutes before the webinar doing some meditation, just sitting in the office and doing some quiet mindful practices to support myself. So really thinking about how you manage not just stressors, like the things that happen in life that lead us to stress, but how we also just manage the regulation of how our body is experiencing stress and being intentional about mindfulness practices that are really supportive for you. And then we also need to think about how we are sustaining balance over time, that we see this as a long game exercise, not something that's more goal oriented. So think about how we are reviewing our priorities regularly and going back to that wheel of life and seeing if we are staying connected to how much of ourselves we want to be experiencing in each of these pieces. Be thinking about how are they evolving? Am I moving into a stage of my life where I need more intentionality around home or recreation or health? And and giving yourself permission to really be in that space. Notice early signs of imbalance. This, as soon as you can catch feelings of imbalance and put a course correction in place, the less likely you will be to hit places of burnout. And then as a leader, be paying attention to the people on your team and recognizing and supporting them where they may be getting out of balance so that you can support them in managing or mitigating any risks of a burnout. And then make adjustments and continue to commit to this process of sustaining balance over time. So, some resources or next steps that might be helpful for you is considering coaching or support services like leadership coaching, behavioral health coaching, somatic experiencing, etc. Thinking about these services as it relates to supporting your team in their own work-life balance. Do they need coaching and support services? Using mindfulness apps. There's a lot of free apps out there. I know a lot of people use the Calm app. I use an app called Fit Mind, and I really like that app a lot. I've used it for years. At Workplace Peace Institute, we have a couple of online courses that I think might be helpful for people who are working to create work-life balance, and these include the Mindful Leader course. The Mindful Leader course is going to support you in cultivating your own work-life balance, but it's also going to be a very supportive learning experience for leaders who want to help those on their team in creating work-life balance. Of course, we need social emotional intelligence in order to sustain work-life balance over a long time. And for those who want to really integrate the idea of dignity into the work that you're doing around self-esteem and confidence building, and supporting self-esteem and confidence building in others, the Dignity Intelligence course may be something that could be really helpful for you as well.